right, we'll go ahead and get started. It's 1 o'clock. So thank you all for joining today to talk about a little bit more about transportation. Again, we're going to dig a little bit more on ensuring that accurate data collection for optimal transportation experience for our residents. And then just talking a bit more about process consistencies, compliance, and best practices. Today we also have Bailey Jameson from the Fleet program. She's going to share with us, again, from a fleet perspective, what are those steps that we have to follow for our vehicle maintenance. So we'll get started. If you have any questions, feel free to add them in the chat. At the end of the webinar, we should have enough time to go over all of them, and you can also unmute and ask any other questions that come up at that time. So the first thing that we've shared on the first module of transportation is that LifeLoop is now our standard for transportation requests. So we want to make sure that we are using transportation as the only approved tracking tool for transportations. So no more paper or external calendars like Outlook or Google or, sticky notes that go around the campus. We want to make sure that we only use LifeLoop. Now, with this, there are a few campuses in North Central and South Ohio that use Movi. For those campuses, they will continue to use Movi. So anytime I say LifeLoop, if you're from one of those campuses, I'm actually saying Movi for you. The reason why we want to use LifeLoop for our standard transportation system is, again, we want to have accurate data tracking. This eliminates any missing, incomplete records and ensures the system-wide consistency across all campuses. Also, it helps us understand transportation needs, tracks requests, approvals, denials, and cancellations to identify the demand and gaps that we have for our services. It supports the resources requests that we're having. So as you all must know, I'm sure you've heard it mainly from our life enrichment support. Currently, we are creating a transportation department. So this is going under the FMS team. So you will see a lot of transition happening in the next year and a half when it comes to transportation. And in order for that to come to fruition, we have to have the data that supports the resources that Parker and his team will be requesting to support the transportation needs that we have. So again, this gives us the data to justify possibly for more vehicles or staff or any scheduling adjustments that we need to make. And we're all here, right, for the resident experience. So again, making sure that we have one place to communicate our transportation appointments ensures that every request is documented, reducing miscommunication and delays. So now let's go a little bit more in depth with how to use LifeLoop, some best practices that we've heard from some of the campuses that we've surveyed on, again, how to make this work best for you, your campus, and your residents. The first step here is having real-time updates. Keeping LifeLoop updated in real time ensures that we always have accurate transportation data. So when a request is approved, declined, or canceled, it must be recorded immediately. In LifeLoop, you have buttons that you can select once a transportation has been approved. You will let them know that, hey, yes, we are taking this resident. Or if you decline the transportation because maybe the vehicle is in use at that time, we want to make sure that we're using that. Or after a transportation has happened, we want to also select that the transportation was completed. All of this, again, is very, very important to avoid confusion, reduces last-minute scheduling issues, and ensures all requests are accounted for when reviewing transportation trends. The next big thing here is communication. You're going to hear me say this word a lot during this webinar. So ensuring that we are discussing the transportation calendar during morning meeting as a scheduled review. Review declined appointments with the DHS, ADHS, So they are aware that some transportations have been declined, so we can look for other or transportation modes or changing the appointment. Selecting the right vehicle for the right trip is also critical. Some campuses may have more than one campus vehicle. Could be a bus, a van, or a car. So it is critical to select the correct vehicle for each trip. Choosing the wrong vehicle can create capacity issues or accessibility concerns. And this ensures that residents receive the safest and most comfortable ride possible. If you have a van, an accessible van, or a car, sometimes that might be the most comfortable ride for your residents instead of the bus. We all know the buses are not the most comfortable for our residents. And keeping that vehicle available for group trips for your life enrichment team as you're using a smaller vehicle for medical appointments helps us do more with all the tools that we have at the campus. Tracking all transportation is important. And this is, I think, a big change with using LifeLoop. So we want to make sure that we're logging all transportation in LifeLoop. This includes when residents use our bus or vehicles. Also, family is transporting them. They use outside providers like contracted services, and anything else. So we want to make sure, again, that we capture all the data because that is going to help us understand how needed transportation is as we continue to progress on our transportation department. Tracking every trip gives us a complete picture of transportation usage, helping us analyze gaps, justify additional resources, and improve efficiency. And the next thing is preventing scheduling conflicts. This is key. Again, communication, communication, communication. But the first thing here is making sure that we have the resident group trips, like going to the shopping mall, restaurants, things like that, blocked in LifeLoop. So the time where we are taking our residents on excursions, we should block that time to prevent the system from incorrectly showing available time slots for medical or other transports. If group trips are unblocked, it creates double booking issues and unnecessary confusion. Also, make sure that you're factoring drive time. This is critical when we have doctor's appointments, so you don't have back-to-back appointments without considering travel time. So once you approve an appointment, make sure that you edit the time, or maybe you add a little buffer, build a buffer before and after that appointment to consider that drive time from the campus to the appointment and back to the campus or your next stop. Residents need time to get to and from their destination safely, so it's important that we're not rushing that experience for them. There's a lot of tools that you can use inside of LifeLoop on how to put these things into place. And something actually I learned just this morning as I was helping somebody with their transportation schedule. There is now on LifeLoop a setting that you can also ask for the address to be a section that the nurses have to add. I know this tends to be one of our pain points on that. So making sure that you have that clicked, so that way they have to enter the address of the medical appointment before they can submit that medical appointment. So kind of to summarize what the process is from the time a transportation request is submitted to when it happened, we have this little guide here. So first thing is that we have the transportation is requested. This is for medical appointments specifically by our, most of the time, clinical team. So once that transportation is submitted, it comes to us on LifeLoop, and it is our time to review the request. So when you review the request, being an LED or TA, you want to make sure that the request is filled out completely. You have all the information that you need in order to take the resident to the right appointment, the doctor's name or the office name, the address, you know, any kind of contact information, important information that may be needed for that appointment. During this time is when you want to assign the vehicle and driver. that will be taking the resident to the appointment. Again, this is very important for communication. Check for resident needs. Do they need a staff member to stay with the resident? Is there a CRCA that will be going with the resident? And then adjust for drive time. So we have that buffer for the drive. Once you reviewed all of that, we then approve or deny the appointments. If we approve the appointment, it's because we had the time, we have the availability and the resources to do this appointment. Once the trip has been completed, so we took the resident, brought them back, everything's done, we want to make sure that we mark the trip completed on LifeLoop. And I believe that is a teal color. You'll see that on your calendar. Also, we want to add the Matrix Care Transportation Request Observation. And for the states of Indiana and Michigan, you also have to complete the mileage tracking and key stats. Now, if the appointment was approved, but there was a last-minute cancellation, maybe the resident is ill, or for some reason the appointment had to be canceled, here's where, again, communication is key, making sure that clinical and your transportation department are communicating. Find a way, find the system that works for your campus on how these cancellations are communicated effectively and in a timely manner. Could be a ready app, text message, right? Finding the person, but whatever works for your team. And then make sure to edit the transportation status to canceled in LifeLoop. This will also alert your TA through their bus phone, through LifeLoop, because they will know right then and there, again, as things are happening, that trip has been canceled. So their time can be used on a different appointment or maybe assisting with other tasks. Now, if we review the request and we decided that this was not something that we could complete, then we would deny the appointment. And again, communication here is key. And the reason why here is very important to communicate that we denied an appointment is, first, we would mark it denied in LifeLoop. But unfortunately, our nurses, right, are not in LifeLoop 24/7. Or a lot of our nurses may work a 24-hour shift. Sorry, I hope they're not working 24-hour shifts, 12-hour shift. We will have a problem if they work 24 hours. A 12-hour shift, and then they may be home for the next 2 to 3 days. So they may not see that an appointment has been declined. So we need to communicate to that nurse, to the DHS, that this appointment is, unfortunately, we're not able to do it, and we need to find a different way. So if something is denied, then the appointment can be rescheduled by your clinical team, and then a new transportation request will be submitted, and we start the process again. Or other transportation solutions can be found. And this is why it's important that your nurses at the nurses station have a list of approved outside vendors that can be contacted to take residents to medical appointments. Also, we want to make sure that in LifeLoop, we do select that outside transportation services or family is taking the resident. Again, because we want to track all the transportations that we do. So as you can hear, partnering with clinical is very, very, very important. To truly succeed in implementing and sustaining our transportation process, we have to partner with our clinical teams. We'll be hosting a couple of short training webinars specifically for your DHSs and floor nurses. These sessions will walk them through how to use LifeLoop for transportation and give them tips for making medical transports more efficient. But a one-time webinar isn't enough. Daily communication is key. So use your morning meetings with the DHS to go over the day's transportation schedule. Make sure floor nurses are aware of who's going out and they know who to contact if there's a last-minute change like a cancellation. Another important piece is making it easy for clinical to use outside transportation when our own vehicles aren't available. Every nurse station should have a printed list of approved outside transportation providers with up-to-date contact information. If they don't know who to call, they will make the call. So let's remove that barrier and make it easy on everybody. Also, don't assume that after training, everyone's going to do it perfectly. If you see LifeLoop entries missing or not filled out right, take it as a teachable moment, support them, coach them, and bring any repeated issues directly to your DHS. That communication loop is what will drive real adoption of LifeLoop. So moving on a little bit into compliance, we've had some changes, some updates to compliance from a driving standpoint. So we wanted to bring some of these things to light. This is not everything. So please, I would highly encourage you to refer to the Motor Vehicle Safety Program that is on Compass for more information. This was released about 30 days ago. If you haven't had a chance to read it, I will highly encourage you to do so. Now, one of the things that has been updated is the mandatory training in Trilogy University. So there are 2 new videos on Trilogy University, the Q strain and the Braun wheelchair lift. People will be auto-assigned for those trainings for as their new hires or during their annual recertification. Also, all LEDs and DPOs will be attending a new motor vehicle safety hands-on trainer in the upcoming months that will be led by your LES and FMS team. This is an initiative that our risk management team has take on, which was much needed. So we have a good actual training that we're doing with any new driver. As you all know, drivers must be 25 years old in order to be on the insurance. However, we can make exceptions if somebody is younger. So we want to make sure that we have as many drivers as possible, again, to support the transportation needs of our residents. As you will continue to hear from us, transportation to medical appointments is not just a life enrichment responsibility. It's a team, it's a campus responsibility. So ensuring that we have other drivers that are willing and available to drive to these appointments to support the residents' medical needs is very, very important. Also, there is no limit on how many drivers we can have on the insurance. So if you want to have 10, go for it. That's totally fine. There's no 5 limit driver on insurance. And the other big change that we've had is no volunteer drivers are longer allowed for any type of transportation, be it medical or group trips. Your AP or EXM are the ones that will be doing the driver eligibility in origami during hire and annually. And again, as I said, if you haven't checked out the Motor Vehicle Safety Program in Compass, I would highly encourage you. There's lots of changes that came about, including what type of wheelchairs we can transport on our buses. So I know a lot of you are going to be very excited about that. And as you can see on this little graph, we also have some new state-specific driver requirements. The states of Indiana, Kentucky, and Michigan have to have these new requirements in place by April 30th. So anyone on the insurance has to get, in Indiana, their for-hire endorsement. In Michigan, their chauffeur endorsement, or in Kentucky, their DOT physical. So as we are evolving in our transportation processes, we're going to talk a little bit about who is responsible for what when it comes to transportation. So we'll start with the TA. Some of you may have a full-time or part-time TA, somebody that actually has that title. And so this is what they should be doing. If you don't have a TA, a lot of these things will fall onto your LED or whoever is driving the bus at that time. So the first thing is managing transportation effectively, right? We want to make sure that the TA is owning the whole process of transportation. This means keeping the schedule updated every shift, not just when issues arise, and that they assist with re-education. Many mistakes happen because users forget or skip steps. So again, use that time as a teachable moment, educational moment with your team. We've talked a lot about the bus phone on the first module. This is a non-negotiable. We want to make sure that everyone that drives the bus has the bus phone available to them. They should not be using personal phones for GPS or giving their number out to families or residents or medical appointments. So please make sure that we find those phones. If you're not able to find it, contact IT because they do have trackers and they'll be able to tell you where they are located. And again, proactive planning, checking that the next day's schedule looks good, anticipating any changes or challenges that we may have to prevent any scrambling at the last minute. And as we continue to move into clarifying the roles and responsibilities, we want to talk more into the vehicle maintenance. And Bailey is going to take over here on the next slide. The main difference here that we're going to have is, that difference between the LEDs and TAs and the DPO role. So when it comes from LEDs or TAs, if you have TAs, our responsibility is to report vehicle maintenance needs to the DPO promptly. Again, we want to make sure that we're all working together. So this is not about shifting responsibility, it's about clarity on the roles. Both the LED and the DPO play important roles in keeping transportation running smoothly. DPOs are best positioned to manage vehicle maintenance since it aligns with overall campus maintenance responsibilities. So encouraging proactive communication between us and the DPOs helps avoid last minute breakdowns or transportation delays. All right, so Bailey, I know you're going to talk about the fleet maintenance program.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Daniela. So routine maintenance, this is the key to fleet efficiency. And on the screen, you can see the life cycle of the maintenance program. And routine maintenance should be completed every 6 months or 3,000 miles, whichever comes first. And campus DPOs and LEDs will receive the maintenance notification that you can see on the next slide. If these emails are not received and routine maintenance is delayed, I will receive a notification and follow up with the campus. And the one on the slide is the one I receive once maintenance is overdue. So next, we're going to review how the program works. So the enterprise fuel and maintenance covers all routine maintenance. That's going to be your oil changes, brakes, tires, fluids, things of that nature. So once that maintenance notification is sent out, the campus will need to use the shop locator tool to select an approved vendor. Approved vendors can be found using the shop locator tool found on the vehicle QR code and on the compass, under the fleet documents. And once the appointment is made by the campus, the driver will need to provide the maintenance card at drop-off. The maintenance card is not a debit card. You cannot purchase anything with this card. It's simply an identification card that lets the shop know to push all invoicing and maintenance records through the shop. So I do receive some questions like they're not accepting payment. Well, they're not supposed to because we're supposed to manage that on behalf of the campus. So once that's done, repair orders are sent to NSD to review and then sent to the fleet department for a final review and approval. NSD is a team of certified mechanics, and they review each line item to ensure that the work is actually mechanically necessary and to improve that pricing is in line. This process usually takes about 24 hours or less. Once work is approved, that's when the work actually begins. And then once the work is finished, the shop will contact the campus and let them know that their vehicle is ready for pickup. From there should be nothing else that the campus needs to do. Failure to follow any of these steps can lead to unnecessary delays and payment issues. Some common issues and solutions. So assuming a shop is approved, we recently had a campus experience like a week-long delay in payment because they used a shop that was not on the program. And technically, guys, like shops can hold your vehicle until payment is made. So always, always verify that the vendor is approved before scheduling service. Another situation that we recently experienced is we had a campus assume a shop was approved because another campus was using them. And in this situation, we didn't have any maintenance history on either of the campus vehicles. So when in doubt, please just verify using that shop locator tool. Next, we are going to talk about major body repairs, lift replacements, and these are items that require specialized shops. So if you're unsure of where to go, you can always reach out to the fleet department for guidance. And these do not have to be an approved vendor, so you can choose any shop to do this level of work. And how this process works, the campus will notify the fleet department of work that's needing to be done, and they'll supply a repair quote. That repair quote goes to the VP of Transportation. From there, he will review, approve, or deny, and then the campus is notified of that decision. So the campus will work with the shop to get set up as a vendor and to proceed with the repair. We do suggest that that vendor paperwork is submitted early in the process, again, to prevent any possible delays or any delays in vehicle availability. So once all that's done, all records will need to be sent to the fleet department. And why this matters, guys. So tracking maintenance records and total vehicle spend is essential for making informed replacement decisions. So if a campus says, hey, I need a new bus, well, we're going to need documented history to justify that investment. And without these records, replacing vehicles does become a difficult case to support. In the final slide, we're going to review the WEX fuel cards. This is the simplest process. So to request a PIN, campuses must first add the drivers to insurance. And for this process, you'll just need to reach out to the risk department. And once that's complete, campuses will email the fleet department with the driver's first and last name. From there, a PIN will be generated and sent back to the requester within about 72 hours. PINs are driver specific and should never be shared, so think of this as your personal debit card. If someone uses your personal PIN, you will be held responsible for any misconduct. PINs are universal and they may be used on other WEX fuel cards. And an example of this is if you're borrowing another campus's vehicle or driving a campus car. So if you have 3 campus vehicles, you should have 3 WEX cards, and those PINs can be used on any of those WEX fuel cards. The WEX fuel cards are VIN specific and they must remain with the assigned vehicle. Okay, so when you're at the gas pump, please do not enter decimal points. When this happens, I'm sure many of you receive the notifications like, hey, please don't enter the decimal points at the pump. It just skews all the data. WEX fuel cards are accepted at most gas stations, except for Buc-ee's. I know that's super unfortunate. And the daily spend limit is $150 per transaction. Only unleaded fuel is to be purchased. And items that you're going to want to keep in your glove box are WEX fuel card, insurance, and maintenance card. And so finally, just some key takeaways and a recap. Always use an enterprise approved shop for routine maintenance. And once you arrive to your appointment, you're going to want to provide that maintenance card at drop off. If either of these 2 items are missed, the program will not work. Never share PINs, and WEX fuel cards are VIN specific. So with everyone's help, following these guidelines will ensure a smooth operation, avoid delays, and keep our fleet running efficiently. So if any of you all have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And you can also drop those in the chat, which I see some coming through. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Bailey.
Of course.
So we're gonna go over questions here in a second, but just thank you, Eric. I see that you've been answering a lot of them. Appreciate that. But just again, kind of to wrap up and some next steps, ensuring that LifeLoop is used correctly. So let's move away from that paper process tracking that we have. Check the schedules on your work days and adjust as needed, and ensure that all nurses have their logins in LifeLoop or Movi. all they have to do, right, is just come to you. You can help them create a temporary password in LifeLoop to give them access. Again, we're going to be hosting trainings for them, so it will be very, very important that they already have those logins. That way the training is a little bit easier for them. Continue to reinforce best practices with your team. Educate everyone in your campus on proper appointment entry. Remind the bus drivers, TAs or not, to always use the bus phone, no personal phones. Stay compliant and prepared. Verify that drivers meet state-specific requirements, mainly with the deadline of April 30th coming up for the states of Michigan, Indiana, and Kentucky. And complete all mandatory training and upcoming hands-on train the trainer that LEDs and DPOs will be invited to. Be proactive and communicate. I will continue to say that. Communicate, communicate. So check next day trips in advance to prevent last minute issues. Communicate schedule changes, cancellations, and conflicts early with your team. And if you have any questions, please refer to the Motor Vehicle Safety Program in Compass, or of course, you can reach out to myself, your FMS team, or LESs. All right, so let's, I'm gonna check the questions here. I know that, Erica, you have answered quite a bit. If you have any other questions now in the chat, feel free to unmute. We can answer those. So Erin asked, if an appointment is entered with family taking, would we deny it and write it in the notes? No. So if the family is taking it as, you know, that nurse is creating the appointment, they should be able to select family, they're taking it. So we don't need to deny it and create a new one or anything like that. So that is going to be part of the training that they clinical will get as well, but you can continue to reinforce that. We should add another option for vehicle. Yes, yeah, you could add another option for vehicle like family transport and also any outside transportations that you're using. So, for example, here in Indianapolis, there's one called Need a Lift. So if that is an option the nurses can use to schedule outside transportation with, I would put that as an option on LifeLoop. So it's, again, communication is very clear that this is the provider that will be taking the resident. So if they don't show up, then we know who to contact. Anyone knows who to contact. I wonder if we can ask LifeLoop to add. Yes, we have. So we'll try it again. But if you guys are able to do it, it's very simple to add those things. Okay. Daniela, campuses have asked if there is a way for LifeLoop to speak to MM. What's MM?
Morning meeting. Sorry.
Oh,
the stand-up form.
I was like, mindful moments. Yes. Yeah, so that is one of the steps that we want to do as we continue to integrate with these platforms. So that is on our future goals as the transportation department continues to evolve. Yep. What if your area campus does not have any other transportation services in your area? That's very common. That's where most of the issues come from for us. So again, it's just ensuring that whatever resources we have, that we have a good plan. That's why having plenty of drivers that are available and willing to drive, probably creating a schedule of those drivers that are on the insurance. So, you know, if on the insurance we have an LEA, we may have the LED, we may have the DPO, we may have, I don't know, a housekeeper, right? Again, anyone can really drive as long as they're on the insurance. Maybe having some form of schedule that Mondays is, you know, the LED if our TA or anything like that happen. And Tuesdays maybe the DPO, and Wednesdays is a housekeeper. So every staff member can kind of work their schedule around that. And again, it doesn't all fall on life enrichment. As we continue to share this information, the life enrichment hours are for resident activities and experiences mainly. They're not for medical transport. So this is a team approach when it comes to taking our residents to their medical appointments.
Hey, Daniela, real quick with that. So in my cluster areas, the TAs aren't expected to clock in and out when they're not running transports and helping on the floor, right? Because that could be like a half hour. So in the cluster areas, they're just clocking in one time, clocking out one time for their day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
I'm
you.
not sure of anything different with that. Yeah. All right.
Daniela,
Yes.
on that question for the like the area, like not having any other transportation services, what I was kind of meaning by that, it's not necessarily that we don't have enough drivers, it's just that the bus won't be available. So like for us on Mondays we have our outings, and then on Tuesdays and Wednesdays are our like outings for the residents, like going in and doing that enjoyment. But then a lot of the times, a lot of the places in Louisville, they only have doctors that are available on like Thursdays and Fridays that we can't provide for them on that. So what is something that maybe we could do for those kind of days?
Yeah. And that is a very common challenge that a lot of campuses have nowadays with specialists, right? They can only see you on a specific day in this time bracket, right? Makes it very complicated. And that is something we kind of touch base on the first module with clinical, where Corey Pinkstaff, the clinical support from Southwest, talked about from a clinical perspective how to be more efficient with medical appointments. So I would go to your DHS and again, try to troubleshoot some of these issues. And I don't want to speak for clinical, right, but you guys are more than welcome to look at that recording. But one of the things that she shared is, are any of these appointments able to be made virtually? Are any of these appointments things that we can do in-house, or do we have different specialists? Are these appointments things that residents are coming in from the hospital with, but truly they don't really need it now that they are with us? Could families take the residents? So there could be other solutions that maybe we do have a high level of appointments, but it's because, again, some of these appointments we're just kind of keeping them, or we're not really looking at what other solutions we have in the campus or in the near area. So if that is a challenge that you guys are going through, I would bring this up with your DHS, your ED, and really brainstorm, okay, what does our transportation look like? And truly with the resources that we have at the campus, what can we do, right? We can't do more of with less. So we have to really figure out what's the best solution. So that's going to be a solution campus by campus. But during the clinical webinars that we're going to have, we will also speak again a little bit more about that clinical efficiency with the clinical support. So again, the nurses making these appointments can start thinking about some of these other solutions to minimize the amount of medical transportations being required. Hope that helped you a little bit. Not the solution, but hopefully that helps you start that conversation.
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure. The policy states that we can load residents using a power chair or scooter, but what about those who cannot get out of the wheelchair to isn't it a seat? Yes. So that's one of the big changes that has happened with the new motor vehicle safety program. So I would highly encourage you to read through that. Most of the time, these new power wheelchairs can transport the resident on them and can be secured to the bus, even if they don't have the 4-point, what's it called? The 4 points to attach to secure the chair. So as you will see on that guide, it will tell you to follow the manufacturer instructions on how to do that and if a resident can be transported on that device. So this is not a one answer or one solution for all those devices. So highly encourage you to look at that and find the manuals or the instructions for that specific device. Okay. Where can we access a list of everyone in our campus who has WEX pins and how to remind them of their pins? Bailey, would you like to take that one?
Yes. So anybody who's needing this information, just send me an email with your campus name and I will send you that list back to your email. And there's not really a process to do these audits yet unless a campus will specifically ask. Example, like if an employee is no longer with the company, they'll need to be removed in the WEX system. and how to remind them of their PINs. So whoever the requester is, I'll send that information back to you and you'll relay that information to your drivers.
Thank you, Bailey.
Of course.
Do all LEAs need to be trained to drive the bus? It is recommended, as Erica said, it's not a must, right? It depends on, again, how many drivers do we have? Do we need to have all the LEAs? It would be great. So that way, when we do have group trips, resident experiences outside the campus, any LEA can take the residents there. One thing I forgot to mention with the upcoming hands-on training for drivers, also LEAs or anyone else that secures residents to the bus but does not drive them will also have to go to that training. Because again, we know that not anybody that drives secures the residents as well. So anyone that will be securing residents to the bus will have to go through the hands-on training on that. Can you please explain the QR code? Are we to scan prior to all transports? Bailey, you want to take a stab at that one?
Yes. So there's two parts to the QR code. The fleet portion is simply informational purposes only. That way, if the driver's like, hey, I forgot this process or I'm broken down, what do I do next? My documents on there are for those scenarios. Now for the risk management side, are we to scan prior to all transports? So that's where you're going to find your pre-trip inspection. And I believe they're wanting folks to complete that for every trip, right, Daniela? I know we were still trying to get parameters around that on what a trip is.
Yeah. So we, when you guys go through your hands-on training with your LES and FMS team, we will have better guidance on, like what Bailey was saying, what is a trip for that pre-check. So just stay tuned for that. Right now, every time we drive a resident, so every time we start a new appointment, that would count as a new trip. So continue to use it every time. Skylar, you mentioned I would like more IL transportation standards for those of us that only have IL. So I'm not sure, Skylar, if you have an all IL campus or you have like villas or second story IL. However, when it comes to IL, we currently are working on a cohort for IL standards just in general. So some of those things may apply to transportation as well. However, when it comes to transportation, again, if we have resident group trips, we want to make sure that they are at least going out once a week as a schedule activity. And then a lot of our ILs do also have a separate vehicle for IL. So again, if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out and we can talk a little bit more about your campus specifically. I only have a few more minutes. Please ask them to add a spot to enter phone number for the provider so we can confirm the appointments. Yes, that would be great to add that on there. Can we go back to the TA clock in, clock out expectations in the class? Okay, Eric already asked about that. Thank you, Eric. Who is responsible for the interior maintenance of the bus? Everyone is responsible for the interior maintenance of the bus, right? So as the driver, if things happen, things get dirty, we should be cleaning the bus. If we have a TA full-time, part-time, they should be the primary people cleaning the bus, making sure the trucks where the locks are, making sure that those are clean, so that way everything works efficiently.
What about the exterior of the bus?
As in cleaning, or?
Yes.
Again, if you have a TA, that would be probably your best bet. If don't, I would probably, each campus can designate who that person would be.
So in the cluster market, just to give you guys an idea, we have big bay car washes that the TAs, when they have downtime, they'll take that bus to the Big Bay Car Wash and use the brush to clean the inside and outside so that they're looking really nice. They typically do that once a quarter unless they, go off-roading and get a ton of mud on it. But they try to do that at least once a quarter so that the buses present well inside and out.
Right, best practice. All right, and the last question I see there, I think Bailey, you may have to answer this because I don't know what the DPO scheduled check is. So does the pre-check replace the checks, the DPO schedule checks? Lots of checks on that question.
So I believe what the old process is, the QR code pre-trip inspection will replace that. We're also still figuring out like the monthly big inspection to, go through that bus like tooth and nail just to make sure everything is in working order. I think that's still a monthly process, but again, we're still working out those details and you'll be hearing some more information about that.
Awesome.
The next one is for me too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, last question from Keisha. Where can we order new magnets for the car?
So any type of magnets or graphics that are needing to be replaced, you'll send me an email with your campus name. And we do need pictures. If you still have that old magnet, we'll need photos of that as well as dimensions. And I'll get that sent out to our manufacturer who can replicate those.
Awesome. Thank you, Bailey. All right. Thank you, everybody, for attending today's training. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, Bailey, your FMS support, or LES. I see a few other questions coming in. So what we can do next is create a Q&A like we did for Module 1, and we will put that on our newsletter next week with all these answers and wonderful questions that you guys have. Again, thank you so much for working with us on making the transportation system more efficient for our residents and also for our teams. And reach out if you need anything. Bye-bye. Thank you, Bailey.
Thank you.